Welcome to On Film with Kevin McCarthy. This is a film podcast that I started primarily to take a deeper dive into the filmmaking craft and decisions that filmmakers and artists make to immerse audiences in the storytelling. And today, I have the incredible Zach Cregger joining me to talk all about Weapons, his incredible career. Zach, great to talk to you, man.
Oh, Kevin, it's always a pleasure, dude. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Yeah, and you and I both have that local connection. I just moved out to LA from Reston, Virginia. I know you're from Arlington, Virginia, which is
Arlington, right down the road.
that's awesome, man. Let's do a little timestamp real quick as to where we are. So, Weapons worldwide box office $267 million, which is absolutely incredible to think about. At the moment, that was the number that I'd seen before prior jumping onto this conversation. But just where you are in terms of the reception of the movie and kind of what this time has meant to you to see the audience is showing up to theaters for an original film.
Uh, it's interesting. I'm in Prague now, and I've been in Prague since before the movie came out. I was in LA for the premiere, but that was a week before, and then I had to come right back here. And so I went to see the movie here opening weekend, and it was pretty empty. And and so I have not like had that experience of just kind of like soaking. You hear about these directors who go and they drive theater to theater and they go and they kind of just like relish in that opening weekend, and I didn't really get to do that. So my kind of reveling in the Weapon success is really from like TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that, and watching people talk about the movie, and it's great, but you know, uh, it's been an interesting thing, and maybe it's good for me to be on the other side of the world while this movie's out, because I don't have people, in LA, everyone kind of would, I'm imagining a lot of people are aware of what's going on, but here in the Czech Republic, that is not the case. So it's probably good for my ego. But I think to answer your question, which I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that the movie has seemed to really connect, and the people are enjoying it the way they are. So I mean, it's what you hope for. You don't make these movies to not have them work. I mean, I would have made this movie no matter what, because it's just such a personal, special story for me. But like, you always kind of secretly dare to dream that it's gonna have a little bit of a surprise life like this. And so yeah, dude, I'm stoked.
Yeah, and obviously, and people are watching and or listening to this interview. You mentioned that you're in Prague, so as a timestamp to that specifically, you're already in principal photography on Resident Evil, right? You've already started
Yeah, we're
shooting.
2 weeks into production.
So this is so cool to me to have that perspective, like to think, okay, I'm sitting here talking to a director while they're in the middle of another film that they're making. We're talking about Weapons as well, obviously, but where is your headspace? Do you remember this period of time? 2 weeks into the production of Weapons, and kind of how you felt then and how you feel now in Resident Evil.
It's so funny. I think about that a lot because this is now the third movie I've made, and it's hard. It's hard, and I think it was hard on Weapons, and I think it was hard on Barbarian. And it's like but I think that it's kind of like childbirth, like the brain the brain locks the pain out. When I think back on Weapons, there's very little like negative that I think about, but I know, and especially when I talk to my wife, because I was calling my wife the other day from this, and I was like, man, I'm hurting, and I'm stressing, and yeah, you deal with all the healthy things, of like, is this going to be good? I am attacking every scene and psychically, creatively all the time. I'm always stressing that how can I make it better? How can I make it better? And it takes a toll. And she was like, dude, this is how you were with Weapons too. You don't remember that? And I was like, no, I honestly don't remember that. And she's like, yeah. So I guess I take comfort in that. Maybe it means I'm doing it wrong. Like, I don't think Clint Eastwood, has this level of anxiety. I'd be surprised if Steven Spielberg does. I really don't know. But I mean, I definitely obsess to perhaps an unhealthy degree on what can I do better? How can I make this tomorrow the best day it can be? And um, it takes a toll.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, and what you just said is important because the questions that I want to ask you today are so specifically surrounding your choices as a filmmaker and the subconscious and the conscious aspect of how we experience your movie as an audience, what you show us, what you don't show us in terms of what's in the frame, what's in the story. But before we get to that, you mentioned being in Prague and kind of being away from here as the movie opens. I did get a little special message for you from somebody that you might know that wanted to say hello to you. I'm going to
Okay.
turn this around. Hopefully you can see this. Here
Okay. Oh
we go.
man. Oh buddy.
All right, here we go. Oh wait, I need full sound here.
Yeah, and raise it up a little bit. Raise it up a little bit. Okay.
All right, here we go. Here we go. I don't know.
Miss you, man. We're still running around like this everywhere. It's freaking me out. Movie is a sensation. So cool. Hope you guys are doing
No.
awesome in Prague.
Oh.
Sending you love, man. Yee!
Oh, dude,
Does
that's
that
so
give you
sweet.
does that give you a little bit of like understanding of how big this movie's been here, man?
I mean, he's such a fucking G. I love Josh. He's just really like I had no idea that when I got into business with him that I would be like, making a friend and bringing someone into my life that is just like just he's just a really special guy. He's a really thoughtful guy and he's really generous and has been really generous with me since the day we met. And I feel a lot of gratitude around that guy. So yeah, that makes my day to see that. That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. All right, I'm gonna dive into this, and thank you to Josh for sending that video in. That was so cool. I want to talk
Yeah.
about cinematography, because
Yeah.
the way this film is shot, and I've seen it 4 or 5 times now, and I picked up on
Wow.
something last night as I was rewatching it. I did not realize this the first time I saw it. Every single time a new chapter is introduced with the person's name, and then we dive into their perspective, we are introduced to that chapter with the character from behind. We
Right.
are, we are literally entering every chapter, whether it be Josh as Archer as he's laying in the bed and the camera goes over him. We have Alex from the back of the classroom with the back of his head. Same thing with Julia as well, and Justine's character. Was that something that was interesting for you to start each chapter that way?
That was Larkin's idea. He brought that up to me early on in prep, and initially when he said it to me, I was like, "Nah, I won't do that." And the reason I said no was because I just had such a strong image of Julia's chapter, of the Justine chapter, starting on her profile and pushing in on her in the front row and feeling all the people in the background that were kind of sitting parallel to her, and I was just like, "No, I don't want to wrap around." Because that was the image that I had in my head was a very striking image, and I thought it was going to really lay the table for her well.
Hmm.
But the more, and he never brought it up again, but the more I kind of thought about his idea, just kind of the more it felt like it would energize every other chapter in a way that I thought was really compelling. And so I ended up getting that image of Julia. It just kind of came at the end of the wraparound. So I was like, I can kind of get it both ways here if I do it this way. And so I'm glad he brought it up, and I thought it was a good device.
Well, it's interesting because you can learn a lot about a person by the way they act from the back in a way. Because
Mm,
without facial expressions, we are immersing ourselves in what that character is doing, and a lot of the camera is moving with the characters as they're
hmm
walking. So we're following Julia's character into the school. The blocking of that shot where she enters the classroom and we reveal Alex, the character on the other side, is just incredible. And I think it's obviously an immersive tool as a filmmaker for us to lean in and go on this journey with these characters. Can you speak about that as well? Not just the chapter starts, but how the camera follows behind characters and what we can learn about them by the way they move.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tend to just naturally gravitate towards these steady cam shots, like The Shining, and Dardone Brothers, and the movie Elephant, is a really huge movie for me.
Mm.
I'm talking about not the Irish one, but the Gus Van Sant homage to the Irish
Yeah.
movie. And there's something so dread-inducing in that movie, just about the Steadicam and the way that we know something's going to happen, but we don't know when and we don't know from where. And it's this wide angle lens and this slow pace, and the character is like dead center in the crosshairs. And it just kind of made my imagination just begin to just like spiral when I was watching that movie. And so I feel like, when I was talking to Larkin, some of the references we had were like Son of Saul, which is another hyper subjective movie where you're
Yeah.
kind of always perched on this character's shoulder, and what they look at, you look at. And so I really wanted this movie, because it's 6 chapters, each chapter following a different protagonist. I wanted it to feel like we were immersed in every single person uniquely to them.
Mm.
We would experience the things as they experience it, and all of the fear would happen. We would see it the moment they see it. And so that means you're going to live 80% of the time in an OTS or a POV.
Mm.
I have like a real pet peeve about horror. I feel like bullshit horror movies do the same mistake all the time. And it's like, it's this. If your character is going to walk down a dark hallway and look around a corner and see something scary, the dumbest thing you could do would be to lead them and show their face the whole way as they walk and turn the corner. And yet I see so many horror movies doing it. I'm like, I have nothing to be afraid of. What am I afraid of, her crying? What is scary here? But if I flip the camera around and I experience what they're experiencing, so I live in my OTS or my POV, now I get to shift my brain into like prey mode. And I'm now scanning for threat, and I'm engaged actively in the scene. And so I just always want to be living over the shoulder of my characters in a horror situation.
It's also important what you do with the camera, what you show us and what you don't show us. And I think it's brilliant about your direction in this film is we collaborate with you as an audience and fill in the space that we don't see around the frame. So, for example, I think one of the best shots in the whole film is when we're with Julia's character in the car, and the house, Alex's house, the door opens. Alex's mom walks out of the house, gets in the car, cuts the hair off Julia's character, and we don't see her in the back seat, but we sit in that front seat specifically with Julia's character, and it's all
Yeah.
sound design. It's the door opening. It's Alex's mom getting in the car. The
Yeah.
scissors. Talk about the idea of collaborating with the audience in a shot like that, where we can fill that in. We can see that, but we can't see it, and I think that's really interesting.
I mean, I don't know what to say about that shot. I really never try and write too much camera work into my scripts, because it can slow down the reading process, and I want my scripts to be really fast reads. But that one, I wrote that shot very specifically into the script. It talks about profile, camera slowly drifts, zoom in on the door, come back, land in the profile. All of it. And I, it wasn't like I had some big intellectual plan about it. It's just like that. As I was kind of writing this, I was like, that's just the way I was imagining it. And I knew that like if I wrote it without talking about the camera move, it wouldn't be as scary. So I felt like it was important to inform the reader, how this was going to be doled out, and so that I made an exception there. I know that's not really what you're asking. You're asking about shooting rather than writing, but I think that somehow they're linked in this situation.
No,
But,
I know. I want to know both. I want to know because you're writing that scene. The audience has to be smart and collaborate with you in that moment. We are with you as a filmmaker. We are leaning in, and
Yeah.
that obviously comes from writing, and then obviously with execution as well. But there's like I always think of David Fincher's Seven, for example. We never see any of the murders happen if I'm not mistaken. Like
No, yeah, no.
everything is
Well,
everything
except for the very, very last one, but
except
yes,
for the
yeah.
last one, yeah.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, for all the sins, we see the aftermath, and it's what
Yeah.
we don't see that's more horrifying. I always think of the lust sequence and the guy explaining what he did in that moment, and I'm like, that's more horrifying than what we could have been
Oh
shown.
yeah, because your brain can show you images that you would never get away with putting on film, you
Right.
know? And so him saying, "Yeah, I fucked her. I fucked her." It's like you can't help but kind of imagine how awful that would be.
Awful.
And I don't even know if you get a good look at the aftermath of what happened, but it's
No.
just the photo of the device and that one line, you know, he told me to fuck her and I did. And you were like, it's all right there, dude. How
Right.
effective. That movie changed my life. Seven changed, it changed me as an artist, as a film person. I have, you know, it didn't change me as like a painter or a musician or whatever, but I mean, it just made me open up to something. And I don't know what, I mean, there's been a few experiences like that, you know, like I think, you know, I'm going to sound like such a film bro, but like reading Blood Meridian had an effect like that on me, where I was just like, okay, I'm a different person now on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And there's something about Seven, the production design, you know, like it was, and I remember when I just was like completely enraptured was when they went into Gluttony, you know, and the reveal, dude, of that man hunched over and just the flashlights kind of showing you a little bit of him and just like how buttery smooth the camera was and that shot of his fingers kind of gnarled backlit by the flashlight, you know, where it's bound at the wrist and it's just his fingers. I mean, I was just like in ecstasy
Yeah.
watching that at like 16 years old in the movie theater. I remember my friend's mom took me and my buddy to go see it because we weren't 17 yet. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I could not stop talking about it on the drive home, you know, and I think she probably thought I was like a little maniac or something. But yeah, incredible movie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and I agree with you 100%. That kind of goes to what I was saying about what you don't see and what you do see and kind of the
Yeah.
effectiveness of that. I want to dive into the editing aspect of it because you kind of touched on it a little bit with you were talking about Seven and then kind of what they show in Lust and what they don't show in Lust and how like the I don't think the MPA would have given
No way
Fincher
in hell.
an
No
R
way in
rating.
hell.
And so
And
I was
maybe good on them because, you know, that
yeah.
that would have been, yeah, we don't
Well,
need it.
that leads me into this question of like, there are two scenes I want to break down from an editing perspective, but also sound design perspective about what you show us and what you don't show us and the extremity of these moments. And the first one is the sequence with Marcus and Terry. And I want to mention Clayton Ferris, who plays Terry, and Benedict Wong, who plays Marcus, which is the sequence where Marcus essentially kills Terry's character, headbutts him multiple times. And it's one of the more disturbing and extreme moments of violence in the film. But there's something about the way that you shoot that sequence, edit that sequence, and the sound design in that sequence where when we're not on the actual action of the head budding moment, we're hearing the sound of it and we're following along with the violence, even if we're looking at Gladys, Amy Madigan's character.
Yeah.
Can you speak about the design of that sequence and was there at all an MPA issue of like if we stay on it too long, or was that all designed that way for an effective kill in that way?
It was all according to design. There was no MPAA flagging of anything in this movie, which was good. You know, I have always been fascinated with the fire extinguisher in Irreversible. You know, and for my money, that's probably the greatest piece of movie violence I've ever seen in my life.
Can I tell you something?
And
That's the
what?
only movie I've ever turned off
And I
in the
totally understand that.
at that moment. I've never made it past the fire extinguisher because of the
Oh, well, then
way.
you don't even know what comes later because it gets worse, dude.
Oh, I've heard about the Monica Bellucci
Yeah.
sequences, and I just like, you know what? I don't want to watch that because
No.
once I saw that guy's face turn into hamburger meat with the fire extinguisher and the camera spinning, I was like, I'm done. I can't.
Oh, dude, but how effective?
Oh,
How amazing.
I still can
Amazing.
see it.
Yeah. It is truly inspired movie violence. And so when I did Barbarian, I was trying to do that, you know, when Keith gets his head smashed against the wall.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and the way I don't know how they made that, you know, I think there's videos about it, but I haven't, but I went about that in Barbarian with just, you know, a series of head molds of Bill Skarsgård in increasing degrees of destruction. And then I was hoping to just hide the edit on the impact so it would look like a continuous shot where his head just gets caved in, but you're watching it the whole time. Didn't work out that way. Didn't cut that great, and I had to end up kind of cutting into it, and kind of broke my heart a little bit. So when it came time to do the Marcus and Terry kill, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna go for Irreversible again. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it a new way. I'm gonna do a headbutt thing. I again did the varying degrees of the head, so it was the same technique. No VFX in either of these sequences. And I think it worked better in Weapons than I did it in Barbarian, but I didn't want to stay in the oneer because it felt too obscene. It felt really ruthless, and I don't want it to feel mean-spirited. You know, I don't want this movie to have any mean-spirited violence. And also, it was important to show what Gladys is doing. You know, like it would be an incomplete scene if I just stayed with Marcus and Terry and we didn't see Gladys kind of tut-tutting about her blood
Just
on
nonchalant,
her hand. And
nonchalant.
totally like chipper, like couldn't care less. You know, and that's arguably what's more interesting and more terrifying about the scene is her total blasé attitude. A couple of people I showed it to were like, I think you have like too many headbutts in this sequence. Fair, but not for my money. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I still don't feel like I quite got it right. I have another project, not Resident Evil, but another one, and I'm gonna go again at this, and I'm gonna get it, by God.
What did you not get right? That's fascinating to me because I've seen that scene.
Here's why I didn't get right. There's a couple of things. One of the things that makes the Irreversible shot so fucking amazing is the hand in the foreground.
Oh yeah.
This out of focus hand almost blocking the lens. And I tried that. I was trying to get Clayton's hand up there, but it was the angle I picked. It made it look totally forced and unnatural. So and what's great about it in Irreversible is every time his head gets hit, the hand kind of spasms.
Yes.
And it's like the hand it's like you're watching not only his head come apart, but you're watching his nervous system disintegrate. You know, it's wildly upsetting. So I didn't get the hand. I didn't get any like particulate on the lens. You know, I think if I had time, I would have practically tried to get a little splatter on the lens at one or two moments. And I didn't quite get that right. And I just think like, you know, there is VFX in the Marcus and Terry thing, but it's not where you'd expect. It's actually the floor, the tile floor behind them. Because to get that camera angle, I had to raise them up on a little bit of a platform so I could shoot from below. And so we had to merge the tile from that raised platform with the regular tile of the floor. So that's a VFX thing. And I don't like that. It looks clumsy to me. It's not anyone's fault.
No one notices this but you.
I noticed. I notice it.
That's incredible. Like what do you?
I will do it again, and I will get it. I will get it.
What is Benedict hitting, and what's the sound?
So we had Clayton's a bust of Clayton made out of like a foam that was pretty solid foam, but squishy enough that Benny could really headbutt it. And to Benny's credit, you know, I was like, Benny, like. And I said this when we first zoomed and before I offered him the role, I was like, whoever does this is going to need to really fucking smash their head into something. And he was like, yeah, mate, no problem, mate, can do. And he, you know, he wasn't lying, dude. Benny does not hold back. Like he headbutted the shit out of that. So we had these three different foam, foam rubber busts and you know, with the head caved in at various degrees, and then we would just swap them out, and he'd headbutt the new one and swap it out and headbutt the new one. I mean, he rung his bell. I know he was hungover the next day just from the impact.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there's no music in that moment, right?
No music.
Okay. So that leads me into the fork scene then, because in that particular scene, similarly, you have an extreme violent aspect happening. The editing of that scene is incredible. We're also experiencing it from the fact that a kid is sitting there watching his parents do this. The sound design of the fork hitting the skin, then you throw in music in that moment as well, which sounds like violins just like
it's like just atonal violin kind of
right.
in a rise. Yeah.
So talk about the design of a scene like that, and because that is also something where you don't want to stay on something too long because there's something reactionary about us going back and forth, and we want to know what Alex, the character, is doing as well. And I want to mention his name, Kerry Christopher, who's, by the way, he's absolutely brilliant in the film. I keep calling him Alex. That's his character. But and also just your perspective of that scene and the editing and in the design of a sequence like that?
Well, that was probably it's probably me in response to Black Swan, because the scene in Black Swan when Winona Ryder stabs herself in the cheek
Yeah.
freaked me out to a degree that I wasn't prepared for. It really, like, I sent shivers. And seeing someone stab themselves in the face is it's
Mm.
pretty hardcore. And so I wanted the stabbing to look real. So what we did is we created these like kind of Nerf sponges that were like pretty solid, but you could really hit yourself in the face with them, because
Wow.
you needed the energy transfer, right? You know, if it was just a VFX fork, it would look fake because your face wouldn't be reacting to anything. So they had to actually hit themselves. So we gave them these like foam things to pound themselves in, so you could see the impact was real, and then we just replaced the foam with a fork. So the
Wow.
cheek was really, going when they were doing it, which was, I think, in retrospect, the right way to go. And then obviously we VFX like the blood and the wounds. In terms of the sound, um, I knew I was going to do some music. I kind of wanted to do very little music in the movie because I'm obsessed with Munich and how little music is in that movie. And I
Or
was
No
thinking,
Country for Old Men.
or No Country for Old Men, exactly. So I was thinking I would try and go that route for as much as I could, but I knew this fork scene. I don't know. I just had a feeling like, I needed to go for maximum impact here. It was a very subjective moment for this kid. Like, what could be worse? So I figured I'd just like kind of honor it. And yeah, so me and my other two composers, Ryan and Hayes, the three of us kind of scored this whole movie together. And that was an easy one, dude. Like, some of these were really hard to score, but that one was just like, give me some violins, get them going really frantic and atonal, and just let them kind of be messy. And I think we like laid it down like in like two passes, and then we were like, okay, that's done.
It's
What else is there
incredible.
to do?
And
Yeah.
then I want to point out the score. The score is incredible because there's a musicality to the editing of this film. The editing in this movie is some of the best editing I've seen in years. And it's just like
Thank
the
you.
the way that you flow with the edit, the music, every single chapter feels different in vibe in a certain way. There's like this propelling of narrative forward with the music and the beats, and like even Archer's music, Josh's character's music has a bit of a comedic quality to it. There's like
Yeah, his is like just all kind of like jazz drums, Yeah,
yes. And
yeah,
there's also something so like I don't know, I find it so cathartic as I watch a film like this when he's drawing on the map and he's finding the location. I'm like I
yeah,
feel like I'm accomplishing something as an audience member as I'm
yeah.
like going along, and then there's just so many things to dive into with that. But the revealing of Gladys and Amy's character is fascinating to me as well because you have to those points of revealing are very important. We see her show up in the nightmares, obviously, with Julia and Josh's character. We have the incredibly awkward meeting with her and Benedict Wong at the school. And then obviously there's just something so fascinating about that. And can you talk about how you wanted to like space that out with her
Well,
reveal?
I'll talk about it musically first. Like the stings are easy. There's not worth discussing stings in a horror movie, but for her reveal, where she walks into Marcus's office, I knew I wanted something that could be kind of ominous and potentially playful, because when she walks in, she just looks so clownish. I was like, I can't go horror here,
Yeah.
but it needs something. I can't leave it naked. And so I decided to just steal from Twin Peaks, and because like David Lynch, like he walks that tightrope so expertly in that show. And so I figured I'd just use a Rhodes and just do like one minor chord, and let that be that. And I think it worked really well for her to kind of step into that, because it just lets you
Great.
think like, okay, am I in trouble with this, or is this okay? I don't even know, which is how Benny feels in that moment. So it felt like that was the right thing for Marcus to experience Gladys with. I got to say, that was a thing Fincher helped me out with that one, where as she walked in, he was like, give her squeaky orthopedic shoes. And I was like, yeah, dude. And what a great little sound design there, like her little, and then we brought it back after she killed Marcus and Terry. And as she walks out, you hear the squeak of her orthopedic shoes. And it's such a good little detail there. I really love that.
Well, that leads me to a question of subconscious versus conscious aspects of what audiences experience with your movies. These little baked in details, like a squeak of a shoe, we might not know that we're hearing it again, but we feel it. And so it's like it's a subconscious thing. Again, that kind of goes back to my question about collaboration, like with the audience. You're trusting that we feel these things.
Yeah, and that's something I learned a lot from David Fincher was like, it was his idea when Julia gets out of the car and goes walking to her house, right? I don't remember after the liquor store. And we're in a profile shot and we rack focus to this couple walking at the end of the block.
Yes, we see
All
them
right. So what
again.
we're also doing is this was Dave's brilliance. He's like, you rack focus, not just visually, but with the cicadas. So we're hearing the cicadas from the foreground disappear, and now we're placing the cicadas in the background. So we're throwing our audio attention, and then when we come back to her, we're back to the cicadas in the foreground. And it is just it's such an extra layer of immersion that I would never have thought of on my own. And it was just like, that's what I'm talking about, like how next level that guy is,
Yeah.
especially in the post process. And so things like that. I mean, how lucky am I to be able to put that in my movie? It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's incredible, but it's also just incredible to watch, like because all those things kind of come back in a very interesting way. One thing I do want to talk to you about. Obviously, you've talked a lot about the ending, but there's something about watching the camera follow the kids in a very fluid way. There's one particular shot as the kids are chasing Gladys where we follow a young girl literally in through the door of the house. But these shots are so incredibly fluid. And I know there's probably a zillion things. I know you've talked a lot about that sequence, but how were you capturing moments like that? Like, was an operator running behind a kid? Was that attached to her back? Like, and what were they running through?
It wasn't a snorri cam. We had an operator running behind her, and so the screen door she jumps through is a real practical screen door.
Wow.
That we scored so it would break. The glass door that Amy slams shut that she jumps through is VFX. So there was just nothing there. So she just had to kind of pretend to fall through that. And then the windows are scored muttons and mullions with no glass. So we VFX the glass. But she really did. I mean, there's really no big secret to that shot. We just chased her through the house really fast. And then we did a Texas switch. So when Amy goes to the front door and the girl goes out the window, we had a stunt woman waiting in the front door. So that woman runs into the yard and gets tackled. Because I was never gonna let Amy. Amy ran all that stuff. That's all Amy. But I was not. But she would, and she probably would have taken the tackle if it was up to her. But I was like, no, dude, no. So that was the only time we used the stunt double for her in that moment.
When you're directing those kids to rip apart Gladys's character, like, what is that process like of telling these younger actors? I know their parents are probably on set, but
their parents are all around,
right,
in a big circle, basically.
How does that what is your direction? Because I remember, I think it was The Shining where I read where Kubrick, Danny, the actor who played Danny, didn't really necessarily know he was making.
Yeah, he thought he was in a completely different kind of movie.
Right.
Well, that wasn't an option that was available to me. But I'll tell you this: those kids were thrilled. They were having the time of their lives, dude. They were excited. They were like, "Who wants to rip open her face? I do. Oh my god! Give me a break." They were loving it. Yeah, but I'll tell you, the experience was awful. For me, I mean, it was really. I'm not awful. I mean, it's going to war is awful, but it was really really challenging because. I felt very much in control of the movie all the way through the movie. I felt like I had my the movie was under my thumb. However, that scene, and I'm not talking about the chase, I'm just talking about the shredding in the yard, felt completely out of my control. We had to shoot it 3 different times, and it ended up being kind of a cobbling together of our 3 attempts because, dude, the kids are wild. And they're pulling apart this very complicated mechanized, dummy that has you have to trigger it at the right time for things to come loose and spray. And,
Wow.
and, we had some trouble with that, but that's normal. But it was just I could not corral these kids to be where I wanted. It either looked too chaotic or too kids just kind of phoning it in. And we didn't get it the first time. We shot it and we didn't have it. And then we shot it again and we didn't really get it. And then we had to shoot it a 3rd time. And then I don't think any of those 3 was the magic bullet. We ended up just having to kind of scrape it together with what we could in the edit. It was
Absolutely.
hard.
Absolutely remarkable. It's a remarkable sequence, and like every time I watch it,
Thank you.
it's like
Thank
whoa.
you.
I mean, there's such a
Yeah.
catharsis to that moment too, as an
Yeah.
audience. Like that's the beautiful thing of what you do in this film. You juggle an impossible tone, and I don't know how you do it. I know it's in the writing and the directing, but there's something like you feel good at the end of the film
Yeah.
in a way, and that's something that's really hard to do. I think food and drinks in films are always fascinating to me. There's something interesting you do with a Coke can early at the beginning, how it gets set down. You don't
That's
even
my
see.
hand.
Oh, that's your hand.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
the hot dogs. There's
Uh-huh.
something like I remember seeing Pulp Fiction and going, I want to try that Big Kahuna burger because
Oh, I know, dude. I
right.
know.
So
Yeah, Big Kahuna Burger, give me it.
give
Yeah,
that
I
burger to
know.
me now, and I want that Sprite as he's sipping it. Like I'm
Yeah.
like it just sounds. But why do those hot dogs look so appetizing? And like, what was the? Is that? I was reading somewhere that was a bit of an homage. Was that supposed to be like a homage to something that was you had done prior?
Well, there's a Whitest Kid sketch where Trevor, who this movie is really much kind of based on. It's not based on Trevor, but it's Trevor died, and this movie was written as a reaction to his death,
Yeah.
and there's a sketch in the Whitest Kids where Trevor is a doctor and he's talking to Timmy, who's his patient, and he's kind of piecing together that the reason this guy's blood work is so awful is because he eats about 16 hot dogs every day. And it's him slowly learning, like, okay, so wait a minute, walk me through your day. And he's like, what do you have for breakfast? He's like, oh, well, I usually will have a hot dog for breakfast. He's like, okay, one. He's like, well, no, And so that's kind of the bit. It's pretty funny, I think, and I don't know if these hot dogs are direct, conscious kind of reference to that, but the internet certainly thinks so, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I honestly don't know.
It could have been a subconscious thing. Well, I mean, and
It
and
could have
and
been.
you mentioned Trevor, obviously, and I think horror and movies like this that we are psychologically drawn to films like this because there's a catharsis that we feel as an audience when we watch movies that are kind of dealing with trauma. But from a writing and directing perspective, you talk about how you wrote this as a reaction to Trevor's passing the catharsis that you found through the process of making the film. I'm curious on the other side if there was any healing in that way or understanding because I know what you mean about why this was a reaction to Trevor's passing and this idea of like when someone passes, how do you deal with that grief if it happens so suddenly? But what catharsis did you find on the other side
You
of
know, I,
things?
I think I was asked this question while I was making the movie, and I said none.
Hmm.
I have no catharsis from this. It's just a way for me to engage with Trevor's death that's constructive and not destructive. But I feel no catharsis.
Hmm.
And now I think having had a little bit more space from it, I think that the healing aspect of this movie in regards to my grief is that I'm able to keep a little bit of Trevor in my day to day.
Hmm.
Making this movie was a way for me to just not block it out.
Hmm.
The movie's about him. It's about me and him, and it's about a lot of other things, but it is about that.
Hmm.
And so it was a way for me to maybe just kind of stay in it a little bit and maybe keep it. The only way with grief, the only way out is through, right?
Hmm.
You can't really avoid. Did we lose each other? You
I
got
think
me?
we're back. You're back. You're back. You're back.
I was saying with grief, the only way out is through, right? You're not really, it's not possible to dodge grief. You have to just go through it. And I think that maybe this movie, if I was making a different movie, I might have avoided feeling all those things because I would have been just wrapped up in movie land.
Hmm.
But I think that this was a way for me to just kind of like not leave it alone.
Hmm.
And I think that was ultimately healthy. I'm still not over it, dude. I don't
Hmm.
know if I'll ever be over it. It's just like a brother to me, and it's just a terrible thing that happened. And um, yeah, I'd be fucking stupid if I said, yeah, making this movie is somehow like, done shit to ameliorate that. But as I'm talking to you now and I'm thinking about it out loud, it's like it probably was good for me to be in it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's a really touchy thing to talk about, and but I also think art is a really beautiful way to express things and work through grief. And I've personally found help in movies, watching films that have healed things in
Me
me,
too.
and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the beauty of art and cinema. I mean, you and I, we don't know each other personally, but like I know you through your movies, and we've connected that way, and there, we relate on those levels of like things we love about movies and why things work in films and why shots work a certain way and why writing works a certain way. So I appreciate you sharing that. We only
Yeah,
got about
man.
5 minutes left, so I'm going to try and hit a couple things at you before we go. And this is completely shifting in gears. I would love to
Sure.
stay more into the filmmaking side of things as well, but when you make a film for a studio like Warner Brothers, for example, in Archer's room, you have Ready Player One, Mad Max, Fury Road. You have Batman sheets. When
Yeah.
you write the script before, I'm assuming before Warner Brothers takes on the film. I don't really know the exact timeline of that, but like, are those things added in
Yeah,
production?
those came later. I mean, I didn't get into Matthew's decorations on his room. I do think I might have said Batman sheets or not. I don't remember if that what's in the script, but it was clear that I needed sheets with a graphic on them that would tell us immediately that it was not Archer's bed, it was his son's bed.
Oh, good
So,
idea.
it probably was sports sheets in the script. I can't remember, but yeah, in terms of the Fury Road and the Ready Player One, I don't know. Those are movies that I feel like Matthew would have liked,
Yeah,
and I like those movies. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I agree. And then the cinematography in the film, I want to go back to that and kind of end on that as well. There is something interesting about the way car doors close in this film. Like for example, like when Josh Brolin's character Archer gets in the car at the gas station, he slams the
yeah,
door shut and then propels forward. It
yeah.
happens a couple times.
Alden.
Alden,
It happens with
yes,
Alden. Yeah.
yes. There's something propelling about that, and I recently saw One Battle After Another like 3 times because I've been fascinated. I love PTA.
What an amazing thing that movie is. I
Dude,
mean, oh my God.
dude. Well,
Oh my God.
do you know the shot I'm talking about though? When Chase Infinity closes when she starts to drive and the door closes after she gets the
Yeah.
keys.
Yeah.
That's what that shot reminded me of. And I know Magnolia was a big part of making
I
this
mean
film as
that
well.
shot's in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
That's not unique to anything. I mean, it's funny because I think those might have been Larkin's contributions, those shots, and then I watched Wolf's after we shot Weapons, and he does it in Wolf. So I was like,
Yeah.
fucking Larkin, god damn it, dude, come on. But you know what? It's in a ton of movies. I see
Yeah.
it all the time. Like now that I'm kind of like I have an experience with it, I count it in so many movies. But it's cool. It's just a cool shot, and you know
Yeah.
what? Like it adds to the excitement of the thing. So yeah, I'm cool with it.
We're gonna geek out about One Battle After Another for the next 2 minutes before you go. What
Let's do it because what the fuck, dude?
okay.
Like this guy has no business making a genre movie this
Right.
good. I can't stand how fucking talented he is.
And
It's
Johnny Greenwood's
unbelievable.
score. Um,
Everything about that movie works like top tier,
yeah.
top tier. It's wild, man. Yeah, Leo is like undeniably at his very best. It's like Wolf of Wall Street like level shit for him.
Yes.
And like I just can't believe that like Paul Thomas Anderson not only can make something so hilarious as Boogie Nights or so fucking nuanced as Phantom Thread and then make an action movie that is like the greatest thing ever and it's just like what can this guy not do?
Yeah.
Can he please just make a straight up pure horror movie so I could just see what the best horror movie would be? I mean, my God.
Dude, the attention that I felt from a horror perspective in Phantom Thread when she's buttering the toast, that's a horror movie. That's
Yeah.
that's
No, he would if he decided to just commit and make a horror movie, it would probably be like The Shining, It's like it'd be like that level. Like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
All right, well they're wrapping me. We also got to shout out Serge Naffa who did the focus pulling on the River of Hills scene. Like that is some of the best cinematography I've ever seen in my
I
life.
don't know how that's possible to
No.
do that. It's like yeah, that's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, Zach,
Yeah.
congratulations to you, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing about your insight into filmmaking. I really appreciate what you were saying about grief and Trevor and how this movie, helped you in that way. And I just really appreciate the conversation. I
Thank you,
love
man.
loves talking to you about art, man. You're
Yeah, Kevin, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So thank you.
well,
Thank you.
Zach, thank you. Congratulations. Good luck with everything on Resident Evil, man.
Thanks, buddy.